Everybody like and subscribe, praise the bell icon. Story number 1.
There was a small KFC off the highway that truckers and night shift workers always seemed to drift into, mostly because it was open later than most places. One man, a delivery driver named Martin, stopped there one evening around closing time. He remembered the sign out front flickering, half-lit, the red glow of the colonel's smiling face almost mocking him in the dark parking lot. Inside, the place was eerily empty, except for one worker mopping near the counter. She didn't say much, just nodded when he asked if the dining area was still open. Martin ordered his food and sat at a corner booth. That's when he noticed something that made him uneasy. Every few minutes, the worker behind the counter would disappear into the back and stay there for an oddly long time. When she returned, she never met his eyes, never smiled, never spoke. He told himself she was probably just exhausted from a long shift, but then he heard something from the kitchen. It wasn't the sound of fryers or the hum of a freezer. It was crying. Slow, muffled sobbing, like someone trying hard not to be heard. Martin shifted in his seat, trying to catch another sound. He thought about asking the worker if everything was okay, but when she passed by with the mop again, she stopped, leaned in just a little too close and whispered, "You shouldn't stay here." Her voice was low, almost shaking, and before he could respond, she walked away quickly toward the kitchen again. Minutes dragged by. Martin's chicken sat untouched on the table, the smell suddenly unappetizing. From the back room came a loud metallic clang, followed by what he swore was a sharp scream cut short. His whole body went cold. He stood up, ready to leave, when he noticed something that made him freeze in place. Behind the kitchen door, which had swung open slightly, he saw a row of plastic buckets lined against the wall. They weren't the normal red and white chicken buckets. These were gray utility ones, and inside them, stacked and wrapped in bloody paper, were what looked disturbingly like animal remains. At least he wanted to believe they were animal remains. Then came the footsteps. Heavy, dragging steps approaching the door. The worker who had mopped the floor rushed out, eyes wide, and mouthed to him silently, "Go." She didn't yell it, just mouthed it, shaking her head frantically. He didn't question it. Martin grabbed his keys, left his untouched food behind, and sprinted out of the restaurant. As he fumbled into his truck and started the engine, he glanced back through the wide glass windows of the dining area. For a split second, he saw the kitchen door swing open wider. Something stepped into the light. Tall, broad, with an apron soaked in dark stains that weren't grease. Whoever it was stood perfectly still, watching him drive away. The mop girl was nowhere in sight. Later, when Martin told the story, he said he never went back to that KFC again. But what haunted him wasn't the crying or the scream. It was that last image of the figure in the apron, standing in the middle of the dining room, smiling at him through the glass as if daring him to ever come back.
Everybody like and subscribe, praise the bell icon. Story number 2.
There was a KFC in a small town off the interstate that had a reputation locals whispered about but never talked openly. People said it was cursed. That strange accident seemed to follow anyone who worked there too long. At first glance, it looked like any other fried chicken spot. Buzzing lights, greasy counters, the faint smell of fryer oil that never left your clothes. But if you stayed past closing, that's when the unease began. One former employee, a college kid named Ryan, described the night that made him quit for good. He and 2 other workers were on closing duty. The manager had already left, and they were wiping down the counters when Ryan noticed grease dripping down the wall behind the fryer. At first, he thought it was just oil splatter, but the smear was thick, dark, and slowly trailing downward, like something was seeping from inside the wall itself. The strange part was the smell. It wasn't food. It was sour, like rotting flesh. The others joked about it, but when they opened the back freezer to grab more supplies, they froze. Hanging from the ceiling were raw chicken bags as usual, but one of them wasn't sealed. Instead, it was open, and something pale and swollen inside twitched. They swore they saw movement, like something living was inside the raw poultry. The bag shook once, then went still. One of them screamed and slammed the freezer shut. Trying to laugh it off, they went back to cleaning, but Ryan couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. When he turned toward the dining area, Every single chair was pulled out, though they had stacked them minutes earlier. The silence was suffocating, broken only by the hum of the soda machine. Then, faintly, over the speakers came a crackling voice. It wasn't the radio. It wasn't music. It was whispering. Low, garbled, and impossible to make out, but it grew louder until Ryan swore it was coming from right behind him. He dropped his rag, ran toward the door, and told the others he was done. As he left, he glanced through the drive-through window and swore someone was standing outside in the dark parking lot, face pressed against the glass, watching them. But when he blinked, the figure was gone. The next morning, the two coworkers who stayed said the night ended with the power cutting out, leaving them in pitch black for almost an hour. They heard footsteps circling the kitchen even though the doors were locked. When the lights came back, the fryer oil was bubbling on its own, though the machine was unplugged. Ryan never went back. Within a month, that KFC shut down without warning. The official story was renovations, but the building has sat abandoned ever since, the signs still faintly lit at night, even though the power has been cut for years. People driving past swear they see movement inside through the dusty windows, workers wiping counters, voices calling out orders, and sometimes a pale hand tapping on the glass as if the restaurant never really closed at all.
Everybody like and subscribe, praise the bell icon. Story number 3.
There was a man named Derek who worked the late shift at a small KFC off the highway in Indiana. It was the kind of location that always seemed half forgotten, the neon sign buzzing faintly, and a faint smell of grease hanging in the air long after the fryers were turned off. Derek had been working there for years, and he swore the overnight shifts were the worst. The store closed at 11, but he and one other employee usually stayed until nearly 1 a.m., cleaning and prepping for the next day. One night in 2017, Derek was closing with a young girl named Leah. She was new to the job and nervous about everything, but Derek told her to relax. Around 12:30, as they were scrubbing down the counters, Derek noticed a car that hadn't moved for over an hour in the parking lot. The lights were off, but he could see the outline of a person inside. He thought maybe it was a trucker sleeping, but something about the stillness bothered him. He mentioned it to Leah, and she froze up, saying she had already seen the same car when she got in at 5 that evening. They tried to ignore it, but a few minutes later, the door chime went off. Derek looked up from the mop bucket and saw the front door slightly open. No one had come in. Leah swore she had locked it earlier. Derek walked to the door, pushed it shut, and turned the lock again. He told himself maybe the wind had caught it, though the air outside was dead calm. About 15 minutes later, while Leah was emptying trash in the back, Derek heard it. A low scratching sound against the glass window by the dining area. He turned and saw nothing, just the reflection of the dining tables under the fluorescent lights. But when he stepped closer, he noticed faint streaks as if someone had run their fingernails down the glass. He rushed to the door, yanked it open, and scanned the parking lot. The car was still there, headlights off, figure still inside, unmoving. He called out, asking if the person was all right. No response, just silence. Finally unnerved, Derek decided to grab his phone and call the police. But before he could, Leah screamed from the back. He sprinted through the kitchen and found her pale and shaking. She pointed at the walk-in freezer. The door was cracked open, and she swore she had shut it earlier. On the inside of the freezer door, someone had smeared greasy fingerprints down the metal, as if they had been hiding in there. Panicked, Derek locked the office door and called the police. It took them nearly 20 minutes to arrive. When the officers got there, the first thing they did was check the suspicious car. To Derek's horror, the car was completely empty. No one in the driver's seat, no one in the back. But what chilled him to the bone was what they found inside. An empty KFC chicken box, still greasy, and a folded store receipt from their exact location dated that night, but with no cashier name printed. Neither he nor Leah had rung it up. The officers swept the store, checking the freezer and the storage rooms, but no one was found. After the police left, Derek and Leah closed as quickly as possible and went home. The next day, the morning crew came in and found something that made Derek quit on the spot. In the dining area, etched faintly into one of the greasy windows, were the words, "Let me in." To this day, Derek swears that whoever was in that car had gotten inside without tripping the locks, without setting off alarms, and without being seen. Leah never came back either. The store stayed open, but longtime employees will tell you that strange things still happen there at night. Doors unlocking themselves, freezer doors opening on their own, and the faint sound of scratching against the glass when the dining area is empty.